Good morning. This is Faith in Our Hometown, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin. And now, here's your host, Father J. Friedel.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's been a long time since we've been together. Easter Sunday, actually, was the last time that we actually recorded, well, we didn't record that day, but we played a recording of a show that we had done earlier. And Easter Sunday was very fortuitous because Aaron Brown from St. Paul's United Methodist and I were talking about hope for Easter. And by the time we were in Easter, we needed a little bit of hope because we've been in the midst of this coronavirus mess, or as I lovingly refer to it, living in time of plague. And that's kind of what we're doing. And so we've been shut down for a few weeks. So we've been off the air for about 3 weeks now. And this is now in Catholic land, the fourth Sunday of Easter. So 3 Sundays after we last were with you out here in TV land. And we finally figured out a new way to kind of record and to do some of those things. So my guest this morning is going to be Dan PEKAREK, who's our public health director. And he's going to be with us talking about an update of the coronavirus and all those things that are happening in it. So grab your cup of coffee, settle in. We're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. So don't go away.
Cancer deaths in the U.S., and now we have an effective tool to screen for it. A low-dose CT uses a lower amount of radiation than a standard chest CT.
Breathe in.
Better detailed pictures than a chest x-ray of small abnormal areas of the lung. A person must be between 55 to 77 years old, asymptomatic, which means they don't have any symptoms such as coughing up blood, chronic cough, shortness of breath, unusual weight loss, or any other worrisome symptoms. They must also be a current smoker or have quit within the past 15 years, also must have a 30-pack year history or more, which equates to smoking 1 pack a day for 30 years, or 2 packs a day for 15 years. People generally avoid these scans possibly due to fear of what could be found. Like many other cancers, if we can detect lung cancer early, it could be very treatable and life-saving.
Well, again, thanks for joining us for another Sunday morning for Faith in Our Hometown. My guest this morning, Dan PEKAREK. Dan has been on guest on our show before, but last summer we were talking about air quality and ozone season, and that seemed a pretty tame topic then. Now we're talking about the coronavirus. So, Dan, in your job as health director, you've had a wild ride for the last few weeks. So tell us, what do we know, what do we don't know about coronavirus, and what do we need to know here in our Joplin area, in our hometown?
Well, we've been at it now, like you said, for several weeks. I would say that right now, at this point in time, we're faring pretty well compared to other places in the state. In the Kansas City metro area and the St. Louis metro area, those areas have issues that are certainly at case rates for the coronavirus that are much higher than in the Southwest Missouri case rates. So I would say right now we're faring pretty well. There's still a lot about this that we don't know. I've been asked many times, what is it going to be like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks? And I just don't have that kind of a crystal ball.
Sure.
I just don't know. We're at a point now where we've been in a shelter-at-home kind of a situation now for several weeks, and I'd like to think that shelter at home, those mitigation efforts, are one of the reasons why we don't have a lot of cases right now in our area compared to other areas of the country. So, we're far enough along that we know we kind of have a picture of what it could be. We see that in other places, and we know that we don't want to be like that. I think the rural nature of Southwest Missouri is helping us as well.
Right, it has to be, because we just don't have the same density of population, right?
By our very nature, we are social distancing. But when you get into even small metro areas like Joplin, you still have to be careful. You have to be cognizant of the fact that we could have issues where we have a lot of cases in a short amount of time.
Right. So in terms of that, do you foresee, I'm not going to try to hold you to anything, and please, anybody that's watching, be kind later if whatever Dan says does not play out, because every day is probably a new day in your world, I'm guessing.
It especially there for even a couple, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we were having several cases just one at a time right away, and and now since that time it's slowed down. But yeah, I mean, every day we do certain things. Every day we're watching the data. We're watching to see what's going on around us. Watching to see what's going on elsewhere in the state. We're just trying to make sure that we don't have a situation that's starting to pick up in the area that we're not aware of, and then get caught off guard. So every day there's certain things that we do. Again, just watching the data, watching the hospital admissions, those kinds of things to see if something's starting to happen that we need to be aware of.
Yeah. So do you foresee this changing for us drastically in the next few weeks?
You know, as we're entering into kind of this first phase of opening back up, that will be happening here very soon. And as we start opening the society back up a bit, that's where we have to be very careful and watch things. You know, the whole concept of social distancing is that, you know, in the absence of a vaccine, in the absence of other therapeutics, antivirals that are really effective against something like this, in the absence of those things, there's not a whole lot of tools in the public health tool chest. And so social distancing is the key thing to do. And so even as we start to open things back up, we have to be very careful then and watch that data, watch those cases, you know, see if our cases start going up. When you start having people being around people again, being in more crowded conditions and such, there's always that chance that you can start to see a spread of the coronavirus again. And so that's the kind of thing that we're going to be watching very closely.
Well, I had one mom say to me the other day, she says, I know we're okay for right now because we're not going anywhere, we're not seeing anybody, we're sending one person to the grocery store and, we're scrubbing down every time everybody gets in the house, which are all wonderful things to be doing and following all the directives very closely. But she says, I'm actually got a lot more anxiety about what's going to happen in this next phase when we start to, quote, open things up, because that control that we've had is suddenly going to be kind of a little bit, throwing a little caution to the wind, if you will, in terms of the way that people are going to kind of want to go after it again. And so she just mentioned her anxiety is much higher on this next phase than it certainly was during the first phase, because she knew that they could control the first phase. But her concern is about opening things back up if we're suddenly going to have this, big, batch of cases, suddenly coming on.
Right. Well, and certainly for some segments of the population, the message is still going to be, actually for the entire population, the public health message is still going to be the same, largely. It's still going to be talking about social distancing, even though you're going to be seeing more businesses opening back up and things occurring a bit more than they have been. The message is still going to be there, that you need to social distance. You still need to have that, try to keep that 6-foot distance between each other whenever you can. Even if you're standing in a line, try to stand back. If you're going out, you're going to see businesses. If you're going out to eat, you're going to see restaurants that are spread out a lot more than they used to be.
So fewer tables.
Right. So
you're
going to see those kind of measures in place. And so the message is largely going to be the same. And really, part of that message is for individuals that are most at risk. That message is still going to be the same. You need to stay where you're not being in crowded conditions. You need to stay, whether it's still in your home or if you have someone that can go do the grocery shopping for you or what have you. That still needs to occur, because those are the folks that are still going to be the most at risk that we really want to watch very closely.
Yeah, because I just know, part of this whole thing is that the first people that are going to want to get back to church are going to be my little old ladies, and and I just keep thinking, wow, they're the exactly wrong people that we need to have in this building when we start to open this thing up, because they're the most vulnerable, they're the ones that are most at risk.
Right, and that's a concern of ours as well, that those folks that are going to be the most at risk are going to want to run. First thing that they can do is go to church on Sunday, and so we're going to still be encouraging strongly that individuals, especially that are at risk, go to church in a different format. Use the videos or social,
like what we're doing now,
like what you're doing now,
exactly,
Facebook or what have you. So we're going to encourage that, keep doing that for a bit longer, until we can kind of see how this thing's going to go. Like I said, one of the big challenges with a novel virus like this is that the body doesn't know it. The body doesn't recognize it. And so that's one of the reasons that it hits some folks so hard. and we just don't have any national immunity. Until we get to that point where we have a vaccine, and that's going to be some months out, until we get to that point where we have a vaccine, we don't have the ability to really help those individuals that are most at risk.
Yeah. And that's still frightening for everybody because, I mean, that's, everybody wants the answers and they want them yesterday, and we don't have those, in terms of that. So in terms of the advice that you're going to give to everybody's grandma, okay, or even to, folks who, parents would have parents our age, okay, it's going to be the same thing, is that life's not going to change that much in the next few months.
Right.
Not until we get not until we get some more tools to be able to combat the disease itself.
Exactly. We're going to still be talking about trying to do that social distancing. We're going to be talking about, watching for signs and symptoms. Check yourself every day. Check your fever every day. Watch for the cough. Watch for chills. Watch for some of those giveaway symptoms. You're going to see a lot of employers that are going to be checking those things when employees come to work. I know we do that at our office now every morning when everybody comes in. So you're going to see those same kinds of things, the same kind of messages. Watch for the fever. Be very aware of those kinds. Watching for those signs and symptoms, and then continuing to do the social distancing measures at every opportunity.
Yeah, and I've already said this, in terms of people coming back to church. I don't know how that's going to work yet, because I don't think that when we start talking about a rollback, people haven't conceived of all this, and folks in my line of business are trying to figure out how we're going to do it. But I suddenly can't pack 300 bodies in the building and have that any kind of a protection for anybody.
Right. It's going to be I can just imagine when I go to church the first time I go back, I'm not going to probably be in the same pew I always go to, There's going to be separation. There's going to be perhaps additional services. There's going to be a whole host of things that churches will have to consider as they try to protect those individuals that they serve. The worst thing that we would want to see is for a large group of individuals to be closely packed into a building like that. We're going to want to see that separation and that spacing as much as possible. So
I'm just saying from my own vantage point, we've talked about lotteries, we've talked about to do that, and then I started chuckling because one of my folks was talking to their son about this, and he said, well, can we buy tickets? And how much are they going to be? And she's like, well, not quite that kind of lottery, but we'll have to figure that out. Or maybe do lotteries for, again, our daily masses, that would be able to spread everybody out just a little bit more. Or maybe I'd have a mass for seniors only, or try to figure out how to do some of that. And then, but again, part of the problem is going to be if somebody's got carrying it and is in there and is in those pews, then, how can I get it sanitized and ready for the next round of people, on the next round of things. And all those questions are up in the air. All those questions are up in the air.
We're seeing something that we haven't seen in this country since 1918, and so we've really lost that knowledge base of how do we deal with something like this. We've been very fortunate, as bad as it has been in some parts of the country, we've been very fortunate in the Midwest, in most areas, that it just hasn't been that bad. And so people, I think, lose sight of how bad it could be. I've had to remind individuals that I've spoken to over the last several weeks that there's so much we don't know about this yet. We don't know if immunity is going to be, we're going to be able to gather immunity from it or whatnot. So there's a lot that we don't know yet, but we do have knowledge of what it can be and what it can do. We can look at other countries, we can look at other cities in the United States to see just how bad it can be.
Yeah. My guest this morning is Dan PEKAREK, who's our City Health Director, and so we're going to be right back after a quick break.
You're watching Faith in Our Hometown on KSN TV, brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.
to your Sunday morning routine. My guest this morning, Dan PEKAREK, who's our City Health Director. Dan, we were talking a little bit right before the break about that whole thing about touching my face. Just got to keep doing it. Got to keep reminding ourselves of those things. But we were talking right before the break about the flu pandemic in 1918. That we forgot that there was a time that we did some of these things more naturally, like touching our faces, and washing our hands, and keeping more distant from one another. What have you read, or what struck you about the parallels between what happened in 1918 and what we got going on now, 102 years later?
Right. I mean, it is interesting that the same tools that we're using now are the tools largely that were used then, because it was the same kind of a situation, although we certainly have health care that's much more advanced and much more available to us than at that time. But as far as public health tools, they're very similar. You know, we were doing social distancing, we were just doing the basic sanitation, those kinds of things that we're doing now, because those are the only tools that we had then, and in this case, until the vaccine is available or antivirals are ramped up and available, those are the same things that we have to do now. You know, one of the things that we were talking about earlier was that, you know, the what's going to happen when we do start to open things back up? Are we going to see more cases? Hopefully we won't. Hopefully if we do, we're able to go in very quickly and find those cases through testing and get those individuals quarantined or isolated. But one of the things that we did see with the flu pandemic of 1918, you saw additional spikes.
Okay.
You had a large spike at the beginning, and then things started opening back up, and you saw another large spike. And so what we want to avoid is that kind of a situation. We want to be aware that as we start to open things back up, we have to be watching. We have to be testing as much as we can, watching for the individuals that are symptomatic, but also try to find those individuals, if we can, that are asymptomatic. It's very hard to do, but we want to watch those cases and try to get them quarantined or isolated just as quickly as we can, so that they don't then infect other individuals, and those individuals infect other individuals, and so forth.
Yeah, and you know, again, because we have had such a mild version, if you will, of the pandemic here in Southwest Missouri, and in our larger viewing area, the 4-state area. Because of that, we could see, I mean, in some ways, our second spike, if we're not careful and we don't manage it well, could wind up being larger than our first one.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, again, I don't have the crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen in the next few weeks. You know, but it would be, I won't be surprised if we see, certainly we're going to see additional cases as we do additional testing in the community and in the area. The more testing you do, the more you'll find it. The incidence rate hopefully will remain low enough that we never have a situation where the healthcare systems are overwhelmed. You know, that's really what these procedures and these actions are all about, the social distancing and the hand washing and the sanitizing and things. That's really about trying to keep that percentage of the population that is most at risk, a large percentage of them from getting sick at the same time. Because if that were to happen, then you could run into situations like you see in other countries, or like we've seen in New York City on the East Coast, where the health system can be overtaxed. And so most all the measures that you're seeing is all about trying to keep that percentage of individuals that get sick at any one point in time small.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, for us, you know, that's those most vulnerable are still our elderly. Mm-hmm. Those people with weakened immune systems, chronic illnesses that they're trying to live with, all those kinds of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be watching, as you said, for the elderly, immunocompromised, individuals with lung or heart disease, diabetes. Those are all folks that are at an increased risk for this disease. The data shows that especially those that are about 75 or older are really highly impacted by it. Yeah. Starting about 65, but 75 and older really highly impacted. And that's why you see the situations a lot of times in nursing homes across the country, where it's been a very serious situation where the virus gets in there and just really affects them in a large way.
You know, I'm going to say something. You know, again, we talked on the show before, not with you, but I mean, I've talked on the show about that I've got diabetes. Okay, have had it for 20 years now. Okay. The interesting thing to me about that is because I don't have a tendency to think about it too often. I manage it, you know, and I'm well controlled, and you know, I get great doctors and all that kind of good stuff. It's all good, but because of that, that's an extra card that we don't know how my system is going to react to something.
Right.
And because of that, I mean, that's why they, you know, caution make sure I get my flu shot every year and all that stuff. But we don't have a coronavirus shot at this point in time. And that's, again, why this is dicey. I mean, I'm not living necessarily, you know, in great fear, but I've got, I think, a healthy respect for an illness that I don't know what it could do. And even though I don't tend to even think of myself as chronically ill because it's managed so well, it's still a reality in my life and in the lives of so many people out there that people don't know. And I think that anybody that's in that situation, again, for the sake of their loved ones, for the sake of the people they serve, for the sake of you know, the community at large, you need to say, we just have to have healthy respect so that we're not throwing caution to the wind to try to figure that out.
Right. Those folks have to have, you know, the folks that are most at risk have to have just an enhanced awareness. You know, they need to really be paying attention to the things that they're doing. We have a briefing 3 times a week, a media briefing 3 times a week, and every single one of those I remind everybody that, you know, the 80% of us that are not likely to get very ill need to watch out for the 20% of us that could. And we have to, you know, whether it means going grocery shopping for the lady next door that's, you know, that's 75 years old or what have you, or you just have to be, they have to be aware of their surroundings and where they're going and where the kind of risk that they're putting themselves in. And we have to be aware of those individuals and make sure that we're not bringing something into that environment where they live.
Yeah. And again, that's just, those are things that I think maybe we might have with, you know, just the convenience that we have in society. We kind of stopped worrying about the little lady next door or the gentleman that, you know, that's in there, or again, what do you do for the other people around you? I mean, that's one of the things I keep doing this, but even 6 weeks in, I've shopped for a couple of people, you know, who just needed a couple things, and I was able to do that and, you know, deliver them and to do, you know, do my thing. But we haven't had tons of requests for that. And so, again, I do think, you know, of all those folks who are on the front lines, like grocery store workers or the people who are putting those orders together. You know, I've been in Sam's and I've watched people going through the store with their lists and doing their thing, or Walmart, same thing. And, you know, putting those things together for people so that they can just come by and pick them up and go without having to come in the store. And I'm just grateful for all those people out there that have done those things. I think of all the healthcare workers. I think of all those people that, you know, who's, you know, not just themselves at risk, but also their families. Right. You know, that they've been out on some of those front lines, and I'm just grateful for the ones that are doing it here in our hometown, our Joplin, greater Joplin area. You know, at hospitals here and in Neosho and Carthage and Pittsburgh, and I mean, you know, all those places where people have been on high alert, trying to keep the community safe. My kudos to them, and blessings go out, you know, and prayers all the time for all those folks that are making that possible for us to be poised for a response. Because I'm not trying to alarm anybody, but I think we have to have a healthy respect for what we're dealing with here, and we've gotten by relatively unscathed so far. And that's even realizing that that there have been people who've been sick, and that there have been people in the greater area who have passed away. Right. I just think we gotta figure out how to take better care of each other, and that for me is part of the whole thing. Is how do we take care of each other? Not just how do I take care of myself, but how do we take care of each other? Right.
Like I said, the majority of us will be fine. You know, if we contract the illness, we can have very mild symptoms or even asymptomatic, which is good for the individual, not good for the rest of us, because we don't know that individual is even ill. But yeah, the majority of us are going to be fine, and I think sometimes that's a hard message for people to get to understand and absorb, because I say that just all the time. The majority of us will be fine, and so I think the feeling then is, well, okay, if the majority are going to be fine, then what's the big deal? Why do we need to worry about this? You know, and again, we just have to go back to, yeah, but there's that minority, that 20% that are not going to necessarily be fine with this, and you know, a subset of that group that's going to get ill enough that they're going to end up in the hospital and have to require that level of care. So it is kind of hard, I think, for sometimes for people to get that, kind of realize that, especially when we're so removed from the places that have been hit by so hard. You know, we're not living in New York City, or we don't live in Italy or in Spain or some of the countries that have been really hit hard. And I understand that there's cultural differences between those countries in the U.S. You know, the way that family units are built and the way people live very close together, that unfortunately, it causes the spread of disease very easily. But so I just think we're kind of removed here in the Midwest, and we don't think of those kind of things when we don't see it on a daily basis like you see in other places. But we have to have a healthy respect for it. It still could happen, and so that's why we just need to be careful and do the kind of things that we need to do for a bit longer until the healthcare world can figure out a vaccine for this and hopefully make it where we can can deal with it for the long term.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking with Dan PEKAREK, who's our City Health Director. This is going to be a two-parter, okay? So we're going to record yet another show that'll be on next Sunday to talk about some of the issues we didn't get to. And one of those is going to be testing, and we're going to talk about a vaccine, and we're going to talk about some of those things. So we're going to be right back after this Mercy Minute. Don't go away.
The whole purpose of screening is to catch people who have a significant smoking history early enough where we can do something about it and potentially improve the duration of life. The minimum recommendation for screening is 30-pack years. So usually people who've smoked more than 30-pack years are the ones that we're screening. If we start screening yearly with low-dose CT scans, we can reduce the risk of death from lung cancer by 20 to 25%. Stage 1, 2, and 3 cancers potentially can be cured. When it becomes stage 4, the possibility of cure falls significantly.
Well, again, it's great to be back with all of you after a few-week hiatus here of our show. We're glad we figured out a new way, and my kudos and my thanks to all those here at the TV station who've teaching us a new way to do interviews with the proper social distancing and to do all those things. And that's the reason why that split screen is there rather than our little table and, us giving up close and personal. We are going to be talking again with Dan PEKAREK next week for the second half of our COVID update. And I just want to, before we get off the air today, I just want to say a quick word about the death of Father Justin Monahan. Justin was welcomed me to this town when I came 14 years ago. He'd already been here many years. And he got a great Easter this year because he got to go on home to heaven. And I just want to give a little shout out to Father Justin and hope he's enjoying his new place of residence and is enjoying the fullness of life, caught up now in the way we Catholics look at it, in the mystery of the Lord's death and resurrection more than he's ever been. And so I just want to say, Justin, rest in peace. And for all of you that knew him, he was a good man and did a lot for the greater Joplin area while he was here. God bless. We're going to see you next week for Faith in Our Hometown.
Thanks for watching. Faith in Our Hometown can be seen Sunday mornings at 6:30 and 9 a.m. on KSN. Brought to you as a community service and sponsored by Mercy Hospital, Joplin.